IT guys are here. Any questions, you can answer. If there's what? Oh, no. He's the guy. I'm going to defer to Tom to, Dan, tell him what's there was a lot of traffic today.
He called me at 7:30. I said, Ed.
Is this on? I guess it is.
Well,
I've been trying to get in touch with you. Where have you
and I
been?
know
You have my
there's
personal
gonna be
cell phone.
facts.
You know where my house is. What do you
Yeah, I didn't give him
mean?
your cell phone number. I gave him I said, call Charles at the county. I gave him the county phone
He's like, where have you been? If you had any real numbers for me, it would be ridiculous. It's your own fault that you don't have my phone.
Yeah. Yeah, he goes,
Do we have any
Charles
courtesy of the
real
floor?
good. I said,
Courtesy of the
call
floor?
him on
No?
too. No, we just call Charles.
Okay, we're gonna start.
Yeah, that's what he's saying.
Thanks, Ron. We're gonna start the Finance Committee meeting. Is there any courtesy of the floor? Nope. Okay, discussion regarding a general purpose authority St. Luke's Health Network project. Mark, I guess you're gonna present this for us?
Good afternoon, everyone. This is weird. So in your packets, you have a health, safety, and welfare resolution for refinancing through the Northampton County General Purpose Authority for St. Luke's Hospital. The refinancing is up to $100 million. And it's not a new project, they're just refinancing some debt to take advantage of the attractive rates. Are there any questions on it? We do have a representative from St. Luke's. If you do have questions, Tom Lichtenwalner, their CFO.
Does anybody have questions?
Are we maximizing what we get back from the fees we charge?
Excuse me?
We get the fees to do it, like the GPA.
Yes, the
has a fee
GPA will get
structure.
a transaction fee for it.
Are we maximizing that in the way that we're getting back the most we can get through the GPA?
I don't understand your question.
The point of the GPA to begin with, really, we didn't need a GPA, to be honest with you, was that we would get money could be made by going through. And so there's a charge that we have, or fees, to run these through. That's the GPA. All right, I'm asking if in fact we're maximizing the fees that we can get through these loans.
The answer is yes, sir. We are.
All right. Would you look into that, though?
Yes.
I appreciate Lamont's answer, but I don't know if you truly understand what I said.
Yes, I do. I do.
Right. Okay, if you're saying yes, then the answer is yes.
Well, sir, Matt.
Yeah. She's chair, I think.
Matt.
Sure.
I think that Mr. Harkey can explain the fee arrangements that exist for transactions of this nature when there are more than one authority who potentially could assist the borrower with this particular kind of transaction. And I think the current framework is as beneficial to the general purpose authority, bottom line, as it can be in the current environment.
All right, so the answer is we may or may not be getting the most, but because they may or may not go to somebody else. I'm asking because...
So it's a competitive environment. Like,
right.
They do not have to go through the general purpose authority to issue these bonds. They could go through the Bucks County Redevelopment Authority. So, you need to set a fee structure that is competitive. Is it the most that you could charge? You know, you could always charge more for the fees, but it's a matter of will they be willing to do business with you? So if that makes sense, like I feel like we've negotiated
I mean,
fair
it's the GPA doing it, so I mean, I realize all we're saying is we think it's a good project. We don't stand behind it, but I'm just getting back to the whole roots of the GPA.
Yes.
And you know, when it was established.
Yes, I think the GPA is maximizing
Before it became its own
the
thing.
fees that they can obtain
Yeah, okay.
on this project.
Thank you.
Maybe we should just quickly review, how long have they had this project with us? This is a refi, correct? So how long did you have the project? How long are they refinancing for? Just a quick update, because there's new members here that never heard of it.
I didn't hear you.
I'm sorry. I said there are new council members here who have never heard of this. So just a quick update of what the original, when the original bond was.
So St. Luke's has been doing bond financings through the General Purpose Authority and its predecessor, the Hospital Authority, for decades. The specific refinancing of these bonds goes back to maybe 2015, 2017. It's probably 6 or 7 different bond issuances, some through the GPA and some through the Lehigh County General Purpose Authority, and they're just refinancing them all for a better rate.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, can I have a motion to move this forward to council?
Not me. Second. You don't need a second.
Thank you.
One point of clarity, do you want St. Luke's to stick around for the council meeting?
Sir, do you have anything to add, or do you want to say anything about it?
Yeah, I think we never really have a problem with what you guys want to use it for. I don't, she's the chair. I said,
Okay.
no, stay.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have a discussion regarding an amendment to the fiscal year 2019 annual action plan. Somebody presenting on this, or?
No.
No, the fiscal action plan.
DCED.
HUD, Housing Development? Is there anybody here who could speak to this, or why it's here?
CDBG.
So this is an amendment. Frank Brooks, who is our administrator, I know is planning on being here for the council meeting, and he can certainly speak on this a little better than I can. But basically what we're doing with the CARES Act, there is some funding that is coming through the community development block grant channels and the home channels, the way HUD is having us incorporate this, they're having us amend our 2019 action plan that you would have approved last year around July to incorporate this money. So this is an amendment to that.
So the text here regarding amount and activity is the amendment portion? The food security, rapid rehousing?
Correct.
Any questions? I guess I have one.
Yes.
So after you do this, will the money be reallocated in any different way to different constituents, since the grants have already been reviewed, or will it be open for a new?
So it's my understanding that the money that was allocated last July, we're not proposing to reallocate in any way. This is just the allocation of the new money. And so you'll see it in here in pretty broad buckets to give us flexibility to respond where the greatest need is.
Mr. McGee has a question?
Mr. Hardney, how fast will the money get to where it needs to be? Or has it already gotten there? I mean, how fast is it?
So I think if all goes well, like we have requirements of doing some public notice, getting your sign off. If everything goes well, we think we're going to be in a position to hopefully start allocating and executing contracts in June. And then the money would flow from there. But until we get some of this procedural stuff out of the way, like the money's not in our federal account, like we can't draw it down.
And then one more thing, like the distribution, you got that mapped out yet, where it's going?
I believe there is a general plan for that. I can't necessarily speak to the specifics. Frank will be here for the council meeting and may be able to speak better to that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Motion to move forward?
Sure.
Okay, so moved. Thanks. Discussion regarding the refinancing of bonds by the Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority? Come on down.
Good evening, everyone. Okay to address the
Sure,
committee?
please do.
Okay, thank you. My name is Tom Stout. I'm the Executive Director of the Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority. I'm also here this evening with Todd Kwan. He is our CFO for the Airport Authority. And certainly, we're all sitting here this evening in masks, so the Airport Authority has also been impacted by COVID-19 and the pandemic. We're working very diligently to contain costs and preserve cash for the organization as we move through this pandemic. The authority is undertaking a project to reissue a portion of our Series 2015 bonds. And essentially, the savings to the Airport Authority this year in that reissue, by deferring principal payments, will save us about $2.4 million in 2020 in cash. So we're actually deferring 3 different series of bond principal payments. And essentially, a lot of what we're going to see in terms of repayment will show up in 2022. The bonds were actually issued in 2015 to finance a number of projects in both Lehigh and Northampton counties. Things like our main terminal renovations, roadway and parking improvements at ABE, also some upgrades at Braden Air Park. So a number of different projects were part of that. And refinancing of these bonds is actually required to be approved by both Lehigh and Northampton counties. Under the actual Municipality Authorities Act, the authority is required to have Northampton County declare by resolution that it's desirable for the health, safety, and welfare of the people in the area served by the facilities comprising the project to have the facilities refinanced through the authority. That's essentially what the Municipality Authorities Act requires of us. The Lehigh Northampton Airport Authority Board of Governors passed a resolution on April 28th to adopt this bond refinance. And a public hearing was also advertised from May 1st through May 11th, and a notice of hearing was actually held on the 11th. And we did not receive any public comment regarding the location of the facilities to be refinanced, the nature of the bond reissue. So we were in front of Lehigh County's commissioners on the 13th and had that motion approved. And at this point, we're seeking the Northampton County's Finance Committee's approval of the resolution to move the bond reissue forward. happy to answer any questions.
Yeah, what were your old interest rates and what will be the new ones anticipated under the refinancing?
Sure. So there's 3 series that we're looking to refinance under the 2015. The Series A interest rate, 2.44. The Series C and D, 2.24. And the interest rates won't change on those.
Okay. So if the interest rates won't change, why are you refinancing?
Great question, right? And it comes back to cash flow. So we're actually deferring principal payments in 2020 for those 3 series. The deferral of paying those principal payments on the bonds in 2020 saves us about $2.4 million in cash this year for the organization. So we will obviously pay that back as we go forward in the future, but the idea is to preserve cash currently during the pandemic, as we've seen a 97% loss in our passenger traffic.
Yeah, I understand that, but it seems odd to me that you would refinance bonds in order to avoid payments when you're not benefiting from an interest rate reduction.
And I don't know,
Can
if
somebody
Todd
explain
Vaughn
that better?
has anything else to offer to that aspect, Todd? I don't know, probably want to use the microphone here. I can step aside.
I mean, would I do this with my mortgage? I mean, that.
I mean, what we're doing, as Tom indicated, is we're deferring $2.4 million this year. So it's technically considered a reissue, but we're not deferring any of the terms. It's just the principal payments will be due at the last date of the particular series. So, for example, the C's, the A and the C, were due 1/1/23. That's the last date of those series. So the principal that we would have paid 1/1/21, we're deferring to give us some cash now. As Tom indicated, what we're doing, if you think about what's going on now and you equate it to your mortgage, it's, hey, I don't have that much cash now. Let me kind of manage my cash until things pick up and then I can pay for it. That's what we're doing. And we're doing it at a 2.4, 2.2% interest rate. So if I don't have any money, which, as Tom indicated, I have 97% drop in traffic, I'm trying to preserve the cash so we can keep operations going until they pick up, and then we'll pay for it later on. And it's technically called a reissue, with this is the way it's been done. So none of the terms really change. It's just moving the principal from 1/1, most of the principal from 1/1/21. Half of it goes to 1/1/23, and then the other half to 1/1/30.
Okay, but there are costs involved with the issuance.
It's very minimal cost. We're just dealing with legal costs and some professional fees. It's probably somewhere between $10,000 to $15,000.
Okay.
It's not a lot.
And are you eligible for any federal money from the CARES Act to make up for this loss of revenue? And why wouldn't you use that instead? Or are you doing that in addition?
Well, let's put it in perspective. We are doing that in addition. We're trying to look at this from the perspective of a 2 or 3 year period. Aviation is going to be the last piece that recovers. So it's not just getting through this year, it's next year. The CARES Act money for us was about $6.2 million. We're going to lose roughly $12 million of revenue this year. That's our latest forecast. So do the math. 6.2 doesn't make up for 12. So again, we're just trying to position ourselves so we can be in the comeback next year. So $6 million, and even for us, we talked about this before, the $6 million, because of the way we do our pricing, we want to make sure we get the most bang for that. If we use that for certain costs, because it's not revenue replacement, it's cost replacement. And some of that cost is covered by the airline. You can't double dip. So if we reduce certain costs, we can't get that money back. So we want to be strategic about using it. So we're not even anticipating using all of the 6.2 this year. Some of that's for next year, because again, what is our best estimate? Somewhere around 70, maybe 75% next year of the traffic we had at the beginning of this year. So we're thinking, this is going to take a 2-year process at least to kind of get us back. And we're trying to hold on to cash to buy us time, because again, nobody knows when it's going to come back. I mean, like I said, we had less than 100 people in our parking lot. And if you understand airports, that's our biggest revenue source. So it's not a good thing. So hopefully I answered your question.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, but I understand what you're doing. To the average person, it wouldn't make sense to refinance at the same interest rate. But, given the circumstances that certain industries are in, I understand what you're doing and why you're doing it, so thank you.
You can equate it to a home equity loan. Hey, I got a home equity line I'm going to borrow against my house because I need cash now.
Yeah.
That's kind of what we're doing. We're just not making those payments.
Okay, thank you.
Does that help?
Yep.
Any other questions since I'm up here now? I'm on a roll.
No more questions? Motion to move forward to council? So
You good?
moved.
All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Last, review of Article 13, Contract County Commissioners Association of Pennsylvania.
Any questions?
Oh, is this P-Corps?
Yep.
Doesn't, going once? Twice? Motion to move forward to council?
I move.
Okay, so moved. Guess we're done. Thank you very much.
Excuse me, could we go over the budget amendment as part of this meeting? Is that possible?
I'm not sure why it's not on the agenda. Because it hasn't been introduced yet.
Yeah, but there's no finance committee. If we introduce it tonight, there's no finance committee meeting before.
The solicitor claims that if a member brings it up, it is appropriate to discuss it
Okay.
at the time if you want.
Fair enough.
Can I ask a question that's procedural? When we have the full meeting, is that wired, or will we be able to move the mic over there? Because I know in Graysdale, the speaker could stand over there. Is that a problem?
I don't know why they
Because it's probably always been that way.
Oh, because of the camera? Really? All right.
Yeah, if
We
I
can
could just ask
discuss that
Mr.
after.
Barron if he could take us through each of the amendments and maybe explain what the reasoning was behind each one.
So the bottom line, to cut to the chase of the amendment, everything, everything in the budget amendment that is here is accounted for in the budget. It was in specific buckets, and because of COVID-19 and the spending we had to move some money around into and out of those buckets. The June amendment that you traditionally get from Human Services was completed early. Therefore, we decided to present that to you now from an efficiency standpoint. We are probably, once we get through this pandemic, we are probably going to do a budget amendment in August and September. So as opposed to 2 amendments this year, we will do 3, because we want to see and make sure that all the departments have the money that they need, and we're not going to be able to move money around between departments. For example, a lot of the CARES Act money is coming in through DCED, but they don't have enough money in their budget to cover it. So therefore, in August and September, we may be having to move some of that money to DCED to cover the expenses that we've already paid out with the CARES Act money, because of where it's coming in. So you're going to see a budget amendment at that time. The county has not hit the fund balance, but for the $150,000 for the COVID-19 test center that we're currently running in Easton, that's now going through June, and the e-poll books. We had talked about the e-poll books at the budget hearings, that we were going to have to hit the fund balance for that, because at the time we didn't know exactly what all the costs were going to be with regard to charging them and things like that. So therefore, we expect to get reimbursed either through the state loan program that's going to be coming back, and the $150,000 for the CARES Act money that's going to cover the COVID costs will also be coming back. So we expect reimbursement for those two things. But as of right now, since that $500,000 was not anywhere in the budget and no one could absorb that amount of impact, we did take it from fund balance and move it back up with this budget amendment. But other than those two expenses, everything else is covered.
Have we heard anything from the state? I realize they're busy dealing with other issues right now, but regarding the reimbursements for the election machines, the e-poll books, we did submit our grants.
Not at this time.
So there's been no further discussion?
I'll confirm, but I don't believe they borrowed the money yet.
Yeah, the state was borrowing to reimburse us for that.
Go ahead, Rob.
Steve, you still have the floor.
Yeah, one other question. We have received some correspondence regarding the IGT with Graysdale. Has that transfer taken place yet?
Yes,
And,
we sent
what was
the
amount?
IGT money out. We have not gotten it back, but because of the way the new funding mechanism for nursing homes through the shared cost plan, Mr. Dunlap has been here discussing that. Because of that situation, we are getting some of the IGT money sooner than we normally would have because it's going to the managed care organizations and then they're passing that on to us. However, we anticipate that money comes back, I believe, in either late June or late July. But we will get that money back. We have made the transfer though. I believe it was something north of 10 million, I think $11.2 million.
Well, thank you.
Steve, I'm not going to get into now because we'll introduce it and then we have a discussion when we go to vote. But I see, you mentioned about with COVID-19 and some of the differences. We have some pretty big swings in this budget amendment, you know, from current to increase or decrease, primarily increased. Are you going to be then, when we have the full discussion, prepared to maybe get into some, I don't want to do it now. But
everything is ongoing right now.
Right.
And that's part of the reason we're going to have an August-September amendment. Because, in fairness to council, as we're paying the hazard pay, as we're paying some other pay, there are other departments that don't necessarily have, like at the Juvenile Justice Center, for example, they don't have a lot of folks there. The overtime is not as high. And while we have hazard pay at the jail, the overtime is not as high because they've pushed a lot of inmates out. And yes, we do have overtime there. There's overtime at Graysdale, but again, the census is lower at Graysdale, so we're looking to see where a lot of those costs are going to balance themselves out. That's why we felt an August-September amendment was more prudent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, okay, I mean, like I said, we can discuss it then. Health choices, I know there's some things, even the grants, but I hold off until we actually have the full plan. That's all
Okay. Motion to, I guess I don't need a motion, it'll be introduced tonight.
Yeah, well, yes.
Okay. Anything else for this committee? Okay, adjourn.
Good job. Thanks, everybody. We'll call it a meeting.
Lori planned it now, it's on to her.
We're here before.
That's Lori's fault.
All right, thank you.